Ring of Honor's Final Battle 2025 was a mix of pay-per-view quality matches and some matches that made you question why some of this was even on pay-per-view. But there may have been at least one thing worth seeking out. So in this review, I will walk you through what worked, what didn't, and the one match that might be Ring of Honor's Women's Match of the Year. Nigel McGuinness vs. Lee Moriarty in a 30-minute Ironman match felt like a real featured match. The falls made sense, the drama built, and the clock added pressure instead of just noise. Then the last 30 seconds stalled, and it pushed an overtime that felt a little forced. So you felt a little cheated, even though the work held up. So for me, as it sits as a big flawed highlight of the show, I give this a clean 4 stars. Now if that finish made you stare at the clock, you knew the main event had to prove that this show respected your time. Athena vs. Persephone for the Ring of Honor Women's World Title was to me the best Ring of Honor's Women's Match of the year. Every near fall made you think that the title might flip. They took their time, they kept the story clear, and it used each step to raise those stakes. And by the finish, it felt like a true main event, not just a token defense. So I saw this as a match of the night at 4.5 stars. Now once that match was solidified, you had to see if the men's world title match could meet the standard or crack up under it. The Ring of Honor World Title Survival of the Fittest match looked like the wild match that could clear your night for. On paper, it felt like a lot. In practice though, it held back until the last 3 guys, and that final stretch did hit, but the Bandido vs. Hechicero standoff ended too soon for me. So I thought it still worked as a very good Ring of Honor title match, and I ended up around 3 3/4 stars. Now when that title match leaned on name value more than the payoff, it turned this next match, which was not so interesting as a rematch, into a real test of what this show could do. Mercedes Moné vs. Red Velvet for the Ring of Honor Women's World TV title played like a quiet course fix. Now if you saw their Dynamite match and shrugged a little bit at it, this one felt like the answer. The timing I thought was sharper, and the ideas did connect it here. And you could sense something was taking shape as time moved along here. So as a second match that happens to be on pay-per-view, I call this a very strong 3.5 stars. Now if that TV title match started to fix old problems, you needed to know whether the trios title match would earn its spot or feel like pure filler. Shane Taylor Promotions vs. SkyFlight for the Ring of Honor World 6-man tag team titles was the kind of trios match you put on when you want a steady hit, not as a classic. The size and speed traded off in clean bursts, and the crowd did stay with it, but it just topped out at just a good match that worked fine for this spot here. So as a reliable title defense, I had this at just 3 1/4 stars. Now when that match held its ground, the real gamble turned to the tag team title match, and whether this was progress or just a cheap reset. Adam Priest and Tommy Billington versus LFI for the vacant Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles felt like the first chapter of a long story here. I thought the pairings worked here. The wrestling was tight, but you waited for one big run that never came. And I thought the finish leaned very cheap and cut off the climb of what they was trying to do here. So as a table setter for this show, it still had some value, but I just kept this at a solid 3 stars. Now if that booking made you question how Ring of Honor uses its belts, it puts extra focus now on this next match to justify the booking. Eddie Kingston vs. Josh Woods was a match you respected more than you chased down later. The strikes here connected and the effort showed here. However, it felt like a strong collision main event dropped onto a pay-per-view show. The biggest Ring of Honor show of the year at that. It just didn't feel vital here, but also it never felt lazy either. So as a straightforward match that moved Eddie along here for his matchup with Samoa Joe, I sit at 3 stars. Now when a match looked more like a TV match than a pay-per-view, it pushed a brand new title to prove this Final Battle show still would matter to you. Deonna Purrazzo vs. Billie Starkz in the Ring of Honor Women's Pure Title Tournament final had the right story in mind. You could see the structure that they wanted, and the closing run finally hit that mark. but the early pacing and rough shifts kept breaking that rhythm here, and to me it held the match back. So as a first step for this new belt, I thought it did just enough to work, but I just ended up at just 2 3/4 stars. When the first pure title final swung between Promise and Rough Edges, it left you wondering if the national title match could shake things up. Ricochet vs Dalton Castle for the AEW National Title had some strong pieces, but a light pulse. I thought the moves looked solid. The timing was fine, but you never felt a clear hook or real urgency here in this match. It came off like a solid TV title defense that wandered onto again the biggest Ring of Honor show of the year. So if you liked either wrestler, you could let it play in the background, but overall I give this one just 2 3/4 stars. By the time all the matches faded here, the question was whether Final Battle 2025 was worth your time. By the end, Ring of Honor Final Battle 2025 felt like a pay-per-view that you paid back for your night instead of wasting it. The top matches did hit, and the weaker ones I thought stayed easy to watch, and key stories moved forward. So for me, this show sat at a solid 8 out of 10. I recommend this.